I'm going to start on a trans service on my 2011 4Runner. Service is the same, the process for all of the 5th gens, 2010 all the way up through 2021. Here's parts we're going to need. There's transmission gaskets, that's it's 2 little crush washers. Gasket for the transmission, the big one. That is the O-ring for the filter. And then the filter assembly. Plus we got some fluid, WS fluid, and a transmission filler to make life easy. So one thing I see a lot of is people talk about the filter being metal, so it doesn't need to be changed. If you look inside here, that is the filter element, that very, very fine screen. So that's a much finer opening than what you're probably picturing when you hear it's a metal screen inside the filter. There's one layer of that all the way through. This side connects to the transmission, so it'll sit in the pan this way. Fluid gets sucked up there, gets filtered, pulled up through here into the transmission. So I am absolutely going to replace that, because that is a very fine screen that can be clogged by all sorts of debris and crap and build up over time. I shouldn't have that issue because I do my trans fluid very regularly, but I don't always change the filter. That's not a super common part of my maintenance process, but fluid, drain and fill. Without a full flush, you're not replacing all of the fluid anyway, which is fine. That's part of the reason I do it as often as I do. I currently have my skid plates off because I was just doing the differentials, which I got another filler for those. But if all these skid plates are coming off anyway, because the transfer case right there will drain right into the skid if you don't have the skid off, and then the front diff being right there will drain right into a skid plate if you don't have it off. So the way I use the truck, every 15,000 for the diffs, so that's when I drop fluid out of the trans. This time I'm doing a major service, refreshing everything, so I'm going to go ahead and put a filter in it as well. Drop the pan, clean the magnets, all that, and I'll show you that process in a few. All right, we're under the side of the vehicle, passenger side. Skid plates are off. There's the trans. You have a drain plug. You have a check plug. That's where you will check the fluid, and you can, maybe you can see that, but it should be stamped right in the head. It says check. And then all the way up here, right here, is the fill plug, which I don't know if that'll show up, but it's stamped with WS in the head because it takes WS transmission fluid. So always pull the fill first, then the check, then the drain. Reason being, you drain all the fluid and you got some problem where you can't get the fill out, you're screwed. So pull the check first because that's the highest up in the, or I'm sorry, the fill first because that's the highest up in the system. Make sure that comes out. Pull the check, make sure that comes out, and then drain all the fluid. So that's what I'll do now. And then I'll kind of check back after I get the fluid drained and all these pan bolts off, and I'll drop the pan down and we'll take a look at the filter assembly. So a quick little tip for the pan. Once you get the bolts out, leave one in on this end, one in on that end. And just take a rubber dead blow and just give the pan a whack. And that'll kind of break the friction loose. So you can see it's loose and wobbling. So now I'll drop out those other 2 bolts and pull that pan down. Alright, I got the transmission pan off. That's the filter right there. So you can see just, you know, four little 10 mils on the corner. When you drain it through the drain, you can see how much fluid doesn't get drained doing it that way. There's a lot of extra fluid. And there you can see the drain plug there. There's the little funnel for the check fill, the magnets. So we'll get all this pulled down and then take a look at it over on the bench, kind of go over what we're looking at. All right, here's the filter on the inside of the pan. So we'll take a look at this. That looks pretty clear. You can see just little faint amounts of debris, nothing that's going to be restricting flow, but you can see all the metallic that's coming off on that. That's totally normal. You will have that 100% of the time when you drop a trans or drop a pan for fluid. So last bit of fluid, nothing metallic, no metal chunks. You'll see the magnets, each one is inside its own rectangular indent. These will always have metallic garbage built up on them. That's nothing to be concerned about. If you got pieces or they're, you know, half an inch tall, then you got some issues. But yeah, for the amount of miles on this, that's a really clean looking pan. I'm happy with, you know, that little amount of residue on the magnets. That's perfectly acceptable. So looking at this pan, just to explain how setting the fluid works. Again, you have a drain and a check. If you look on the inside, this check has a funnel up here. So if you try to drain it through the check, it only drains to the top of this funnel. And the point of that is you get all back together, you fill it up with fluid. With my drain pan here, I emptied that prior to dropping the trans fluid. That way I will drain that into a bucket to see how much I took out. I'll fill it with probably about half a quart of trans fluid more than what I took out. So with the trans filled, you're gonna go through and get the fluid up to temp. You'll start the car, hold the brakes, shift from reverse, neutral, drive, neutral, reverse, neutral, drive, go back and forth a handful of times, brake torque it a little bit. Do that with the wheels on and torqued, not with wheels off. I had that off because I was replacing the flex lines and some other maintenance items. But I'll put the wheels on before I do all that. Get the trans up to temp. I'll show you how to check the fluid temperature. Get it up to 100, and then you'll pull this check plug out the bottom and let the fluid, when it's 100 degrees, drain itself to the top of this. So you pull that plug with the fluid at temp, and once it stops dripping, put the plug back in, you're done. So I'm gonna get this all cleaned up. I'm gonna get a new filter bolted up in there and put the pan on, and then I'll show you how to fill it. So, real quick, I got the pan cleaned up, new gasket sitting here, magnets are all cleaned. Just something I felt was worth mentioning. When you clean all this out, make sure you're using lint-free rags. The last thing you want to do is get fibers of towel or paper towel, whatever, sucked up into the transmission. So yeah, make sure you use lint-free. I got the filter with the O-ring put on there. I'm going to put a little bit more fluid on there, and then I'll actually show you the process for physically installing that. So, slight mishap there. This was the O-ring they gave me. This is the correct one. This is the old one that came off. You can see that's the right size, where that is noticeably bigger. That's why that didn't want to go in. So, try again. There we go. So you'll see it, for the most part, holds itself up there on one end. That should be a nice snug fit. Once you start a bolt, it shouldn't fall out. But I just wanted to show you guys, there is a little bit of a a struggle to getting those O-rings seated. Honestly, part of it is because it's kind of a pain working on your back. Much easier when it's up in the air on a real lift. But I'm going to tighten those up. And then I'm going to get back to the lint-free rags here. And just wipe down everywhere around it for the gasket seating. All the surfaces where the gasket sits. Get that cleaned up. We'll get the pan bolted on and we'll get fluid in this thing. Alright, pan's on and tight. The drain plug is in with a fresh crush washer. The check plug is tight with the old crush washer. We're still going to pull that out, so we're not going to replace it yet. So we'll take out this fill, and you'll see on this fill plug, it's just a rubber O-ring, so that's reusable. Something worth mentioning, depending on the tools you have, you don't have to fill it through there. You can actually fill it right through the check, especially with a tool like this where you're going to pressurize the fluid. You can just pour it right up in through there, shut the valve, wait till it gets up to temp, then just unscrew it. But most people aren't going to use a tool, a pressurized tool, so I'll just kind of show you this way. So we'll put, however you're going to get your fluid in, I'm just going to use this attachment with a little hook on the end. Poke that up into the fill hole, open the valve, find a way to kind of set that into place. And then you recruit a minion and you have them start pumping. So you'll see the fluid going up. And there we go. We're filling our transmission. Good job, buddy. All right, we're going to start this up. Just a quick reverse, neutral, drive, park. I have the Carista dongle plugged in, and I'm using the OBD Fusion app with enhanced Toyota diagnostics. So there's 2 sensors for trans temp. Rather than just sitting here waiting, we're just gonna drive. We live on a cul-de-sac, so not a big deal to just loop around. I got my little co-pilot. He's gonna come with us. See, trans is 70, 74. Those two will equal out over time. One warms up a little bit faster. I'm assuming it's just closer to the torque converter compared to the other one.
GPS connected.
But it gives you a chance to get it under load, hit the kick down. Loop around our cul-de-sac here and then come right back. Is that silly, getting to drive without going in your car seat?
Yeah.
You don't get to do that on the roads though, do you?
No.
Never. Well, not never, once you're bigger. So quick drive. I'm just gonna sit here and monitor temp. I'm gonna brake torque it a little bit. You'll see that really warms up fluid. So you can see that's over temp. That's showing 116, 117, but that's not actually accurate at this point. You'll see it start to climb down over time to kind of realign with that one, because again, one is closer to the torque converter, and the torque converter makes a ton of heat. So you can see it starting to climb down, slowly starting to equalize. So we'll just let them sit here and do their thing. We'll check back in a few minutes. You can see the two temperatures finally equalized, but still not up to the full temperature. Temperature temperature 1 seems to be a little more accurate than temperature 2 in terms of fluid level for setting it. So we're just gonna sit here and wait for this thing to climb up to 100, and then with it running, I'll pull this check plug. All right, we finally hit 100.6 degrees on both of them. So, engine's running. We're gonna take this check plug and remove it. Got a new crush washer ready to go. That's a slow trickle. We'll call that good enough. Plug back in. Finished. All good. No warning lights. Drove fine. We're calling that a success.